What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of the M&A Matters mini-series. This is your host, Can Tiryakioğlu, and this is episode 7 out of 10. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the key stages of a separation program. What does a separation program involve? So essentially, a separation program starts at the point of having the intention to separate a part of your business. In some instances, while this business might be already reasonably separate from the rest of your business, in other instances, you may actually need to carve this section of the business out of your existing business. This is the reason why sometimes separations are referred to as carve-outs. But what does it mean to carve out a business? Well, firstly, you need to establish the perimeter of the part of the business that you want to sell. And in order to do that, you need to do two things. Firstly, you need to identify the dependencies between your existing business and the part of the business that you want to sell. This needs to be across all of the business functions. It includes back office functions, and there may even be dependencies in front office functions as well. The way to find out whether you have dependencies or not is to do the assessment through the lens of 5 categories: people, processes and services, assets, facilities, contracts, and technology. Across each of these 5 categories in each of your business functions, you need to identify the dependencies between the carve-out that you want to do and the rest of the business. Once you have identified the dependencies, you then need to identify a set of principles that we call separation guiding principles that will allow you to separate that carve-out, separate that business from the rest of your business. These principles are things such as how much a person is spending time, how much of a person's time is spent doing business with regards to the carve-out versus how much time is being spent with regards to the rest of the group. So, for example, anyone spending more than 50% of their time on the carve-out perimeter business would transition out with the carve-out. Or you could say that if you have a system that is being used by the whole business, then you need to split that into 2, and the cloned instance of that system would depart with the carve-out, and things like that. You need to establish the principles for each key element of the business, whether that's people, processes, contracts, and technology. Once you have established your separation guiding principles, you then need to establish what we call service delivery models. Service delivery models essentially describe how the carve-out is going to operate at day 1 of the transaction and how it will operate at fully separated stage. During the establishment of the service delivery models, you would also need to understand what TSAs, transitional service agreements, would be needed to ensure a smooth transition from you owning the carve-out versus the buyer owning the carve-out. Transitional service agreements are essentially agreements that allow certain services to be provided by the seller to the buyer for a limited period of time, so that once the carve-out ownership changes hands, the sold entity doesn't fall over, and the business as usual continues until the buyer sets up its own systems, processes, and everything, and is able to integrate the carve-out into their existing group. Once you have defined your service delivery models, you've determined what transition service agreements will be needed. You will then need to adjust the financials and costs associated with separating the business, and also with the transitional service agreements that you agreed with the potential buyer. The best practice states that the TSAs from a seller's perspective need to be as short as possible, obviously potential buyers will look to have TSAs that are longer because it's in the interest of the buyer to have a longer period of time for adjusting to acquiring the company. So it almost always becomes a negotiation. Both the price of the TSA as well as the duration of the TSA becomes a negotiation. And usually you get longer TSAs in the IT space, in the tech space, where system access and system provision could be up to 12 months, 18 months, or even 24 months in big transactions. Other TSA examples can be for finance support, for HR support. Finally, once you've actually defined the costs, you have a view of the cost to separate the business, you would then look to create separation plans to execute on the service delivery models you created. And these separation plans would also need to include any TSA exit plans. TSA exit plans are mainly created by the buyer of the business, because at the end of the day, they need to ramp up their operations so that you exit the TSAs. However, the sellers also need to review it, be a stakeholder that reviews the TSA exit plans, because you want the carved out entity to be off your services as quickly as possible. That was a quick whistle stop tour of the key elements of a separation. If I missed anything, let me know. If I need to explain anything more clearly, let me know in the comments. If you like this episode, give me a like. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.